Although many mainstream academics continue to toe the line in regard to our planet's ancient history, who built these inexplicable ruins found all over our Earth, yet, perhaps most importantly to their job security, continue to claim as to know when they built them. Many suspiciously popular YouTubers who have mysteriously sprouted up over the last few years, all with an eye to discredit the work of individuals such as ourselves. A dismissal and opposition, which, like that of those from the academic sector, they too have no valid explanation or defense for the mass of evidence we have collected, resorting to ad hominem attacks and simply attempting to insult our style of content creation, and indeed, your intelligence and critical thinking faculties. Rarely brave enough to actually debate any of the evidence we present. The vast array of matching tool marks, unexplained masonry, the implementation of enormous stones, or indeed the incredible distances this lost civilization once transported these megaliths. Advanced architectural weight-bearing designs, advanced metallurgy, earthquake-proof mortarless structures, statues depicting the same poses and symbology separated by thousands of miles. Pyramids now revealed as on nearly every continent, the apparent melting of stone with laser-like precision and so forth. These individuals continue to expect you to swallow a literal opinion, an assumption, or worse, a deliberate lie in the face of glaring facts. Facts which, when presented to the wider world, will prove their opinions not only shaky, but had an incentivized funded foundation, which has not only actively concealed this truth from the world at large, but will soon crumble under its own lack of supporting factors. Factors such as those which could explain how such opinions were established in the first place. Opinions which will soon be clear to all as completely absent of any explanatory demonstrations or proofs in any form, proof of any kind, which support these long-held claims of who built these sites, and more crucially, how. Although the many tool marks we have identified all over the world could be used alone as proof of the global reach of this lost, yet once highly sophisticated civilization. For wherever you find these markings, such as the cup and scoop marks most synonymous with the unfinished obelisk of Aswan, wherever you find the enormous megalithic stonework, you will surely find these tool marks, along with the many other ancient anomalies we have shared in previous videos. Polygonal masonry, for example, or indeed the advanced metal clamping methods also found worldwide, do seem to overlap at many of these ancient sites. Sites we intend to isolate via a pin map, creating a visualization of these lost ancient anomalies locations, a color-coded geographical display of the reach of each of these ancient technologies and developments. We intend to present this in our first of many upcoming books, a first of its kind in an attempt to prove or disprove once and for all if all of these sites overlap. It will reveal via the overlapping of the patterns whether these all the work of the same global civilization or rather the work of several, so keep your eyes open for its release date. However, this ability to lift and work enormous stones, we now feel can be used to isolate not only the rough age of many of these megalithic ruins, but could reveal the time within our Earth's lost history, where this civilization experienced an as yet to be established event. A possible cataclysm, followed by a flood, which wiped them out mid-construction, leaving their many source quarries eerily and abruptly abandoned, frozen in time, with many unfinished and unliberated megaliths found everywhere. If one were to entertain their existence as fact, and indeed presumed that whatever happened to them sent them hurtling back into a Stone Age, we would expect to see remnants of this lost knowledge still present within these groups, within their Stone Age ruins, a group which, although we at present would perceive as the start of our civilization, could too be the surviving remnants of a previous civilization also. You would expect those who we call the Neoliths to have still retained their sophisticated astronomical knowledge, which would have allowed them to build huge and precise astronomical clocks, or rather henges. You would also expect them to still have remnants of the knowledge and indeed ability to cut and transport huge megaliths, which, although lacking refinement due to an absence of surviving tech, would still be utilized in the creation of their homes, such as the dolmens, or within the many granges they were able to somehow build up via huge earthworks. Structures clearly of illogical sizes if one were to perceive these people as barely past the discovery of fire and before the wheel. Such an event could have possibly been the result of a polar shift, or at the very least the tilting of Earth's axis. This new path for the sun, then tracked and recorded in stone, perhaps in an effort to re-establish their bearings within the universe. You would expect to find similar megalithic structures, or indeed the utilization of large, seemingly immovable stones within their dwellings. You would expect to see remnants of these lost capabilities not just present within one group upon one landmass, but one would expect to see similarities within their structures worldwide, seemingly coming up with the same solutions or rather methods for working huge stones. This would be due to having once been connected, and with untouched remains found atop and below countless highly controversial and thus heavily debated sites, such as the Pyramid of the Sun discovered by Sam Osmanagic within Bosnia, the largely untouched ruins discovered within Indonesia, or indeed the many still buried and hidden pyramids located across Eastern Europe, all independently carbon dated to around 30 to 32,000 BC. We have a timeline of events which would fit snugly up against the official chronology of Neolithic man. Could these datings, and indeed the aforementioned evidence, suggest they were one and the same people, indicating that whatever happened to this once great megalithic moving group occurred just prior to the arrival of Stone Age man within the archaeological record? In an upcoming video, we will explore the polygonal masonry found across the globe, a lost knowledge so intricate and baffling it has taken us over 10 years to establish just one working theory for how some of these walls were created, let alone the many varying styles and seemingly bended and melted stones, earthquake-proof, mortarless walls with stones made with beveled edges, another among a long list of ancient anomalies. Smoking guns from a now lost civilization, which I intend to expose to the world in my next series of videos. Astonishing facts which clearly demonstrate mainstream's faulty narrative, one that is destined to be disproven en masse. An inevitable critical mass of awareness is coming, one that I will continue to fight for. It is a path to enlightenment which we find highly compelling.
Neolithic Britain is perhaps one of the most historically profound collection of ruins to be found anywhere on Earth. Mysterious ancient ancestors who displayed such astonishing abilities of stone building, we still have no logical explanation as to their methods, using unimaginably large megalithic rocks. Often aligned with such perfection, we still struggle to understand where this knowledge came from. Barrows, mounds, earthworks, and other structures, built with such intent, we are only just beginning to unravel their true purpose. We have previously covered a number of these astonishing structures, mostly focused upon the gigantic megalithic blocks within their construction, often concealed and protected under many tons of earth, that although, according to academia, were apparently constructed by primitive, flint-wielding ancestors, display such precise alignments focused upon the winter solstice that the mystery surrounding their true origin is waiting to be unraveled. However, the most astonishing of all are undoubtedly found upon mainland England. A place which possesses 4 Neolithic structures with such an astonishing characteristic, it simply defies modern understanding. The first 2 structures within this astonishing ancient message being the West and East Kennet Long Barrows, enormous earthworks measuring at 350 feet long, 75 feet in width, and over 25 meters above ground level, with entrances guarded by standing stones over 12 feet in height, each of which many tons in weight. These stones somehow quarried and transported to the site, and precisely placed in their positions far back within antiquity. And although there are a number of other Neolithic structures within the area, these 4 specific structures have been revealed thanks solely to modern satellite technology to contain an ancient geospatial awareness that is simply astounding. It seems, instead of a Neolithic focus on solstice alignments, these 4 structures were instead devoted to the far more complex lunar orbit, showing a knowledge of the orbit of the Moon far too accurate to be logically explained. The arc distance between the center points of the long barrows, discovered to represent the value of days per lunar orbit, known as an astronomical constant. Both arcs present astronomical constants, days per lunar orbit and days per lunar anomalistic period. These ancient people somehow knew about these complex orbits, so intrinsically, the geospatial alignment between the four monuments have been mathematically calculated to be so precise they are exact down to the third decimal. Questions obviously arise from such an awareness of such complex knowledge. For example, if these ancient people had such an intimate knowledge of astronomical precisions, why were they only capable of constructing such primitive structures which represent such accuracies? Secondly, if they were only capable of building such structures, who gave them this knowledge? Or indeed, where did it come from? Were they, as we have often postulated, a surviving remnant of a far more advanced civilization that experienced cataclysm upon our planet, retaining such knowledge at that time, yet had lost their technology, slowly leading to a loss of this information over several generations of primitive life? Regardless of our postulations, the complexity within these alignments is undeniable, astonishing, and undoubtedly evidence of the past existence of superior ancient knowledge, and as such, incredibly compelling. England is a place steeped in history. Ancient megalithic sites and mounds litter the countryside. Many of these places, claimed as having been created during the Neolithic period, however, the still existing enormous size of the ancient trilithons, for example, many of which still standing, predictably evade modern explanation. With many of these ancient sites' past functions still heavily debated amongst those in the so-called know, we feel that due to the often inexplicable nature of these ancient sites, there is a strong possibility that they are in fact remnants left by a once far more capable group of individuals than our Neolithic ancestry. A group somehow capable of quarrying, moving, and lifting these enormous stones into the positions we find them today, often still displaying their intimate knowledge of solar movements. And Maes Howe is no exception. Nestled amongst the rugged landscape of Orkney within Scotland, this so-called burial mound was once perfectly aligned with the midwinter solstice, allowing sunlight to pass down its immovable passageway only at this particular time of year. And this impressive passageway is the focus of our video. As with the many other unimaginable, unexplainable ancient sites that can be found all over Earth, the many hundreds of people who frequent them merely overlook that which has been hidden in plain sight, in favor of academic notions pertaining to the origins of such sites. These enormous, immovable megalithic blocks that were used to form the walls, floor, and indeed ceiling of the entrance to Maes Howe were clearly created with the intention of remaining in situ for untold millennia. Built with blocks as yet unexplored, and as such, of an as yet unknown weight. Yet the photographic imagery already taken clearly indicates that these megalithic blocks run into the hundreds of tons, far too huge for any of our Neolithic ancestors to have once moved or indeed built with. So, a question arises: who could have built Maes Howe? Why did they build it? And perhaps most importantly, when was it built? Undoubtedly containing megalithic blocks far in excess of any within Stonehenge, and possibly the biggest yet discovered upon the British Isles. Many of these claimed megalithic sites desperately need new eyes to investigate them. Yet, regardless of what academia would like you to believe, we find the evidential, thankfully immovable features of Maes Howe highly compelling.
Huelgoat is a popular destination with tourists and holidaymakers alike. This is due to its impressive natural setting, among which the vestiges of an ancient forest still survive, one that once covered the entire island of Brittany. Once part of royal and ducal lands, the forest is now overseen by the French Forestry Commission, the National Forest Office. It has a footprint of around 10 square kilometers, with a large replanting scheme repairing much of the damage sustained by the forest and storms, which occurred upon the 15th and 16th of October 1987, when 3.1 square kilometers of trees were leveled or damaged. However, within this surviving ancient forest, ancient Neolithic ruins can be found. Ruins synonymous with many other countries around the world, as if made by a people who were simply motivated by aesthetics, thus creating stunning, yet equally baffling structures, which we have come to know as dolmens. However, although in some areas of Earth these can be attributed to past dwellings, many of them which survive were created with such small base stones or such large roof stones that arguing that creating them for any other reason but their creation continues to be just as puzzling an explanation as the techniques that were once seemingly harnessed, which enabled our purportedly Stone Age ancestors the ability to pick up ancient megaliths of such enormous scales. Le champignon, or the mushroom located within the forest, is but one example of these mystifying, unarguably Neolithic formations, once created with a roof stone of many tons of weight. Yet any logical argument as to the past purpose of these stone structures remains just as elusive to explain, as how these incredibly ancient people somehow once accomplished such feats. Who were the Neolithics? How can their ruins be located all over the world, yet not attributed to a group in communication with each other? We feel the evidence to support this postulation is all but overwhelming, yet continually denied as a possibility, or even considerable as a reality by any field which is in defense of current rigidly defended fallacies, claiming that such groups were primitive and lacked the ability to cross continents. Yet the evidence in defense of this, found on almost every continent on Earth, which we feel is obvious proof of a conspiracy. Regardless of this and the denial of them having links with other countries, we find the ruins which still survive within this ancient wood within Brittany as highly compelling. During our extensive research into the Neolithic Age, explorations into the countless Stone Age ruins, which can be found all over the world, a hypothesis began to form regarding their past possible identity. However, evidence continues to mount suggesting that this was incorrect. Stone Age ruins like that of Stonehenge are all part of an existing legacy of a civilization which, according to mainstream paradigm, lived over 10 millennia ago. A people who displayed incredible capabilities, not only in the quarrying, moving, and eventual placement of many stones in excess of 100 tons. The incredible displays of earthworking, mounds and barrows formed from thousands of tons of earth, all of which was once laid atop these underground layers. All of these remarkable features are indicative of a group who were once bestowed with tremendous capabilities. Research provided by various specialist fields, alignments displaying a past, intimate knowledge of solar precessions, so complex, we have only very recently been able to fully understand just how astonishing their accuracy was. For Avebury within the UK holds Neolithic lunar alignments, found to be precise down to the 5th decimal. MH felt that due to the seemingly primitive nature of many Neolithic stone buildings that, although this ancient people clearly displayed incredible abilities, their structures on the surface, however, also appear not as advanced as many other enigmatic ancient builders. Due to this, we presented a thesis that the Neolithic people were a surviving fragments of a once far more capable, yet now lost civilization. We theorized that these groups, scattered across the earth, still possessed the knowledge to move said stones, yet had lost advanced technology. We have instead unearthed fitting historical details to support another, more intriguing theory. We found that many Neolithic sites, clearly constructed over extended periods of time, share uncanny similarities in their constructions to other ruins located on other continents, even displaying a somewhat deliberate, intended use of rough uncarved stones. And the Great Salbik Kurgan is no exception. An enormous Neolithic barrow found within modern-day Siberia. Although locally known as a kurgan, This barrow, just like that of the Flintstone-esque dolmens also found across the world, is virtually identical to New Grange, a winter solstice-aligned barrow we have previously discussed in several videos. Thus, with this mounting, collaborative evidence, MH's hypothesis of Neoliths, having once been surviving groups of a post-cataclysmic world, has all but been proven wrong, and they were instead the work of a once flourishing, globe-trotting civilization. It would appear that these ancient monuments were built by a once prospering, worldwide society, and just like that of the pyramids of Giza, ancient Peru, Lebanon, China, along with countless others, were all constructed by past world-conquering superpowers, who fortunately left their proverbial fingerprints all over their particular sites, with the so-claimed Neolithic Age now found to be no exception to this rule. Who were the Neoliths? How are we supposed to believe the claim that these astonishing structures were somehow created by people wielding nothing but flints and whom never made contact? How did this group align their monuments so accurately? And perhaps most important of all, what were these structures' original purposes? It is imperative that we continue to unravel that which has been successfully withheld from us for too long. It is a pursuit which we find highly compelling.